The Korrektiv story is entering a whole new era of absurdity that we are experiencing here in Germany. The car convoy has arrived in Berlin and what there is to say about it, as well as the fact that the healthcare reform probably won't happen like this. There is a need for clarification, more disputes within the coalition, a roundup of all the news this morning, and we'll start with the first point where I really have to say, guys, have you lost it? Are you too fat? Are you not allowed on the trampoline? That's what we're going to take a look at first this morning, because once again I have to ask, where are we actually at? In Germany or in Europe's open-air psychiatric ward? If you would support this channel with a like and a subscription, I would be really happy.
Now we're looking at a curious case in Leipzig. A gymnastics club is having a lot of trouble with the city because the club set a maximum weight and a maximum height for the children. Even the judiciary got involved.
When I heard that, my first thought was, what's wrong with them this time? I mean, let's be honest. There are people like me, for example, who have absolutely no business being on a trampoline. I've heard that people who have used trampolines excessively in their lives, maybe under certain circumstances, that a very specific small minority of people have suffered some kind of mental disability or psychological damage from it. I'm not saying who it was. It wouldn't be right to do that. That's a strong insult, but I just wanted to throw that in there. No, kidding aside, it's Saturday morning. Let's be honest. Not everyone is cut out for jumping on a trampoline. Not everyone is cut out for cooking, like me, for example. You just have to accept that, or maybe not.
The City Sports Association, which didn't accept the club.
We're just having a conversation, kind of like a compliance check, where we not only look at the statutes, but also check what kind of online presence the club might have. And that's where we saw that children and young people are excluded based on their height and weight.
Yeah, not everyone is cut out for jumping on a trampoline. And like I said, I don't even remember who it was anymore. But I think that for some people here in Germany, too much trampoline jumping hasn't been good. But now we're going straight to the hot topics. Healthcare sector. Yes, there are these changes now. You all heard about it, right? The CSU is already up in arms. The SPD is up in arms. And the CDU internally, they're also arguing now exactly because of this project.
Brocken, Minister of Health Wacken, still dared to take it on. The fact that she's now getting criticism from all sides might actually be a good sign, because it makes it clear that everyone, from pharmaceutical companies to health insurance providers to the patients themselves, has to contribute.
Except for politicians and recipients of citizens' allowance or social benefits, whatever the project is called, they definitely still don't have to contribute anything. However, everyone, and I really mean everyone across the board, thinks that this project should be stopped urgently. Yes, the CSU wants to stop the project, the CDU wants to stop the project, the SPD wants to stop the project. People have realized that this is not good at all. They've already lost too much in the polls just by hinting at it. And dear Ms. Wacken, if you ever happen to hear this, no. If everyone is up in arms, then it's extremely harmful to push this forward any further. Unless, of course, you want to mess up the election so badly in 3 years that you and the CDU eventually fail to clear the 5% threshold. You'll have to see for yourself then. Now we come to the Korrektiv disaster, which is really taking up a lot of time this morning. Yes, back then I actually saw myself as, am I a right-wing extremist now? And I couldn't come to terms with it myself for months, and now I have the answer.
It's about the fact that the investigative platform Korrektiv is no longer allowed to claim that the plan to deport millions of migrants from Germany was forged in Potsdam.
So, and if that's gone now, what's actually left? So honestly, those few statements that maybe weren't entirely constitutional, but what's actually left of it now? I mean, there were hundreds of thousands, millions of people out on the streets who, well, how should I put it, were thrown into fear and terror. Are there going to be any cuts now? Is the funding for Korrektiv going to be cut? Do they now have to answer in court somewhere in a civil trial? Is the state security unit investigating this? The Office for the Protection of the Constitution, which is now getting involved. What actually happens now when there's such massive interference in the elections, like what happened there?
What happened then? There were mass demonstrations in Germany, early 2024 as well, really with 200,000, 250,000 people who were truly worried, my God, what's going on here? The federal government was there too. The chancellor was at the demonstrations, the foreign minister, the interior minister at the time, but it wasn't true at all.
Wait a minute, there were only that few people? Can you explain that to me really quickly? I made a video about it. I can link it to you at the end if you want. They said 350,000 people, 450,000 people just in Munich and Frankfurt, almost 1 million people in Berlin, almost 500,000 people in the smallest villages here in Germany. What did I calculate back then? I think it was 20 million people who were out on the streets in one weekend. Is all of that not true? Was it only 200,000? Were the sea demonstrations actually much bigger? However, what wasn't bigger was the march yesterday in Berlin, but maybe I'll say a bit more about that at the end.
So that means so many people, including the government, fell for a report that simply wasn't true. There was no such plan, and that's now been decided in court. And I think that's important, because if we're being led around by the nose in public by false reports, well then, hallelujah.
We're not being led around by the nose with false reports here. What is he even talking about? Well, yes, we are. Do you know the ORR blog on X? No, that doesn't ring a bell for you. It covers that every day. Yes, really every single day. That public broadcasting spreads false information or invites politicians who are fundamentally against the AfD just to spread hate and incitement. That's exactly what makes the German system so sick. Hate, incitement, and false information from public broadcasting. And he seriously stands there and says, yes, so in Germany, if we're all being led by the nose, that's the point that needs to be made. And that's the problem. Again, yesterday the press didn't report on it. A whole convoy of cars got together from Emden, by the way. I personally have to apologize to Sebastian. I have him. I really did him wrong. I realized it yesterday how passionate he was, and I thought that was a good sign. So, great, I can't stand behind everything, but I think it's good when you just do something. I don't know if the whole thing yesterday was effective. I just know one thing. And that is, there will probably be someone next who will do the whole thing, or this country will definitely go down.
Everything is getting more and more expensive. The government says there's no other way. We've signed contracts. We have to stick to them.
Yes, the AfD has submitted a motion. I mean, now that the Korrektiv lie is really, yes, out of the way. There are no reparations. There's nothing like, yes, compensating the AfD for what was done to them. No, none of that exists. That would be asking too much anyway. However, they have now submitted a motion saying that we should withdraw from these climate projects. Because you can see it all over the world. More and more countries are pulling out of these climate projects. By the way, that didn't happen, and that's why I just want to briefly mention the demonstration again. On May 16th, streets are supposed to be blocked all over Germany and so on. I'll ask everyone again, do you already have anything? Do you know anything about it? I'd like to support that. I don't want to make the same mistake again like I did with Sebastian, so please feel free to send it to me. Write me an email. I'd be really interested. That this disaster of things getting more and more expensive should stop, but of course the proposal was rejected.
It's being debated in the Bundestag. Yes, should it continue like this? How do we handle it? The budget is exhausted, the country is broke, and that's why I think it's definitely worth discussing.
No, I definitely think it's more worthwhile to talk about everything for once. About every expenditure of this federal government, where they are redirecting this money from the economy only to then immediately go and relieve the economy again. But that's not even possible for this government. That means new conflict is already brewing again, once more between Klingbeil and Reiche. This time it's about the kerosene fuel shortage for aircraft. Airplane, I'm not quite with it this morning. Yes, we're going to face a shortage, Reiche says. No, absolutely not. That's produced in Germany. But apparently she doesn't know where the raw materials for it come from. Maybe someone should, point that out to the good lady. However, the Strait of Hormuz is clear this morning. However, Donald Trump's last statement was that if there's no agreement by Wednesday, then the thing will be closed again immediately. So, well, searching. I can see some ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz right now, and we have, let's say, a slight easing. However, I have to say the entire oil trade is, of course, massively disrupted right now, and in about 1 or 2 months, yes, in a year, then we will really see what this has actually been about worldwide. If the bombings don't continue after Wednesday,